Joe Biden and Xi Jinping met for the first time in 6 years. In a meeting that lasted 4 hours, the biggest outcome of it is probably both the countries restoring military communication. But Taiwan, human rights, Middle East and Iran did feature in their talks. Addressing the media after this meeting, Joe Biden called Xi Jinping a dictator, while the Chinese president emphasized on his intent to neither have a cold or a hot war. But the big question is, has the Israel war made US climb down on their stance when it comes to China? What is Xi Jinping's game here, and does this meeting have any implications on India? Before we delve into the discussion with our guests on this, let's first listen in to what both the leaders had to say.
He's a dictator in the sense that he is the guy who runs a country that is a communist country that is based on a form of government totally different than ours.
The United States should not bet against China or interfere in China's internal affairs. Whatever stage of development it may reach, China will never pursue hegemony or expansion and will never impose its will on others. China does not seek spheres of influence and will not fight a cold war or a hot war with anyone.
All right, joining us to talk more about this is Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, former diplomat. Captain Alok Bansal, international affairs expert, also joins us on the show. Mr. Vijay Kranti, India-China relations and foreign policy expert, also joins us on the broadcast. Ambassador Kapoor, I'll begin with you, sir. Sir, it's one thing to have a 4-hour-long meeting and discuss pressing issues which have bothered or rather, troubled both the countries for a very long time. And it's another issue altogether that after you are through with that meeting, you call the other leader a dictator. What perspective does it give you? What perspective does it give you? And is this obfuscating? Is this complicated, what Joe Biden has done? Sparing 4 hours for, one of your biggest rivals, your nemesis, and then calling him a dictator and also expecting things to work out?
Thank you, Vineet. It's a difficult state of relations between US and China. And it incidentally may have been a total of 4 hours with the delegations and all that. What was envisaged earlier was different, but ultimately I think it was nearer 2 hours between the two leaders. So what has been the outcomes is very useful. Statements apart and calling names apart, the decisions which have been taken are good for US, are very good for China, and I guess somewhat useful for the rest of the world, because to re-establish fractured communications, which were absolutely, the Chinese side were refusing to even pick up the phone or to respond or to talk. So to have an agreement on that in military to military communication and other communication, and to also discuss about the very important drug crisis where China has been flooding the world markets with fentanyl, which is a very, very, critical issue for the world today, because just like COVID killed millions of people all over the world, fentanyl has become the biggest killer in the US today. And for US to be able to combat this challenge is very important, because this is not a drug which is grown organically or on plants. It is manufactured in the laboratory, so the quantities which can be manufactured are practically infinite, because the raw materials available are not difficult to get. So for China to be the #1 fentanyl producer in the world, because it devastates the land, it destroys the demography, it destroys the future, because the youth, once they get addicted to it, it's very difficult to get out of it. But the more difficult part of fentanyl is a very small overdose of adding fentanyl to the other drugs in nanograms kills a person very, very quickly. So how do you fight that is very important for the world to realize. India has also become, I guess, because of all the foreign influences from the neighbors, including Pakistan, ISI and China, an important producer of fentanyl. Unfortunately, India will also have to take care of its problem, both for internal and external reasons, because you don't want to be highlighted as the biggest producer of fentanyl after China, or those sort of, impact on the global stage will be very negative for India. But that apart, to be able to talk about these aspects and to say that, okay, China tried to press home its point that It is suffering very badly from the technology aspects, all the investments going out of China, no new investments coming in, and all the new technologies being sort of restricted now completely to China. So China has a lot of internal problems which are blowing up in its face. The real estate sector is collapsing. The economy is in a very bad shape. The railway sector is in a very bad shape. The wars in Ukraine and the Middle East have made it worse. The BRI does not have as much luster or traction today amongst the countries. The countries have very little interest in following up with the BRI projects or for engaging in new projects. China is finding that it's a very bad investment. The predatory loans are not working out very well. The African Union summit, which it had called, the number of leaders who were present in China were very few compared to the earlier summits. The way it played out on G20 platform in Delhi summit in September, China had tried to sort of make it a very big positioning that the president will not be participating. But with the African Union becoming a member with 54 African countries as part of the process of G20, it was a big sort of slap to China, because thereafter the Prime Minister of China gave a very positive statement, but that was too little and too late. It's a growing population, the demography is not in its favor. So all the aspirations which China had, because it has opened so many fronts internally and externally and regionally, all its aggression against the US forces in the Indo-Pacific, the aggression against all the other countries in terms of claims on their territories, in terms of the natural resources. So any country which opens up so many flanks at the same time can never be successful on the global stage. And China had to realize that at some stage, and it seems that it is probably the pushback internally also. We have seen the defense minister vanishing in China, the foreign minister vanishing in China. They were both proteges of President Xi, and they are no longer on the stage now. So there is too much of a chaotic situation for China to handle. So I guess it also wanted to send a signal to the US people that, with the Democrats, it'll be easier for the Chinese people to work. So they are also helping the Democrats and President Biden in the internal politics of US. But for themselves, their aspirations to be number one in the globe, I think, is absolutely history, and it will never happen. Thank you. Back to you, Vinny.
All right. Sumit P, senior political commentator, also joins us on the program. Sumit, what do you make of this meet? Are the Americans, of course, doing this for some sort of an optics right before the elections? Because, the high-handedness towards China has always worked out, for people like Donald Trump in the past, maybe not so Obama. Do you think Joe Biden is also going by that script?
Vinny, thanks for having me on your show. In fact, it is the Obama who is not letting Joe Biden do anything. In fact, it was the Miss Rice who was the advisor of Joe Biden who had to be checked out of the White House, and then the CIA is looking at the logs. How many times did she come? At times when Joe Biden speaks, I think they are the words of Obama. I mean, that is the control of Obama still has on, White House and Joe Biden administration. Winnie, this meeting is what Hindi mein kehte hain na, औपचारिकता. It's just good, we talk. In fact, I'll take you to the couple of instances. The first instance was that, it was a very interesting meeting this time around. First of all, no conclusions. Secondly, Chinese admitting we don't want to overtake United States of America. We don't want to be number one. We don't want to compete with you. We don't want to do with this, because Xi Jinping's economy is literally in trouble. In China, you cannot withdraw more than $300 from an ATM. Beyond that, you have to give an application to the bank. Once it's approved, then you can withdraw the money. That's point number one. That the chip ban has really crippled China. So Xi doesn't have a lot of options. And what has the Americans done? Yesterday, when it was all happening, 4 important instances. First, she picks up iPhone and says, I have this picture here. Do you recognize this man? And who is in the picture? It is Xi Jinping, I think, steady next to the White House or the Golden Gate Bridge. He says, yes, it's me 38 years back. So he was telling me, देखो बेटा, तुम 38 साल पहले यहाँ के फोटो बनवाते थे. That is America. That's point number one. Second thing, when Joe Biden is walking him to the car, he looks at the car. Oh, this is a very nice car. She says, oh, it's made by China. We're Chinese manufacturers making this, all this. But he says, this looks very similar to my cardiac, what the brand he uses. So basically, Joe is telling me, look, buddy, you copied my car. Very simple and plain. Then while the things are happening, the reporters are asking, do you trust Xi Jinping? and they're asking Xi Jinping, sir, do you trust Joe Biden? This is happening in a press conference where reporters are directly asking the question. And when she leaves, the Joe Biden is asked a question, do you think he is still a dictator? Will you still comment on a dictator? He says, yes, you are running a communist party and I will still call you a dictator. Which Chinese today replied, this is political manipulation and unfortunate on the United States of America. We condemn that. If this is what is happening after a president-to-president meeting, it is mind-boggling, Vineet. And let me tell you, you know what the Pakistan media is covering today? Pakistan media is today saying for a change, India never changes its stand. Bharat kabhi nahi jhukta. ये देखो Xi Jinping लेट गया था Joe Biden के सामने. We don't want to compare, we don't want to do, because he has a falling economy on hand. He doesn't have too many options. What will that man do? He cannot fight America. And Vineet, let me tell you, all his forces are infiltrated. I did a video on one of the digital channels. I explained everything, how his all forces are infiltrated. Now, even today, the so-called rocket force, rocket force, Americans have the technology to take out with pinpoint accuracy each of the launches of any rocket of the rocket force. With that kind of things and his arsenal not being reliable, what do you think he can do? But I have first time seen Joe Biden, which is unlike his character, making fun of him. And when his car was there, they also had Joe's car there. So they wanted to show, dekho beta, yahan ye wali se copy kiya, kahin nahi banaye. So do you get a president of a Republic of China and humiliate him such publicly? That is what is the biggest take. If I give you 5-6 instances, I have a lot in my head, but we don't have a lot of time. So I told you 5-6. So if China thinks it's a successful visit, then when Alice in Wonderland has no ticket and Xi Jinping is the most welcome guest, he should be going there more often.
All right, good points there. Captain Alok Bansal, what do you make of this meeting? Does it have more to do with what Joe Biden wants to project at home and less to do what he really expects from China?
See, I think the statement that he made after the meeting has more to do with the domestic audience, and the meeting has far more serious implications. The meeting comes at a time when both the countries' economies are in bad shape. There is no doubt that Chinese economy is seeing stagflation. There is actually retraction. The economy is crumbling, but still China is growing. The IMF and World Bank assessment of this year is fairly okay if you actually look at from the developed world point of view. The US economy has never had so good, but both the countries need trade with each other to thrive. And the business lobbies in both the countries are extremely powerful, especially in the US. The business lobby wants that trade relations with China needs to be normalized. In China, their economy will crumble if they don't have normalized their trade relations with the US. And I think the ongoing conflicts in Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas have also made US seek certain concessions from China. Whatever reports have come out, China has assured the US that they have no plans of invading Taiwan. President Biden has said that he's not changing the one China policy. He's, however, said that they'll continue to arm Taiwan. So whatever statements have come out is actually one part of it. For domestic audience, President Biden has to assure domestic audience that he's not changing his posture as far as China is concerned. I'm not too sure whether the meeting has gone as is being projected. To my mind, the meeting shows a certain climb down from both the sides and certain amount of rapprochement as far as the two countries are concerned. And this needs to be taken with a pinch of salt as far as India is concerned, because many people in India bank completely on alliance with US as a sure shot guarantee for India's security. I'm not too sure about it. India has to depend on itself to defend itself, and India has the capacity and capability to do so. So that's an important factor, and that I think we need to understand, because this particular meeting, the way it has gone about, it actually raises certain questions in my mind. I think how powerful is the business lobby? How powerful is the lobby that wants normal trade relations with China in the United States? Of course, President Biden has had a 4-hour-long meeting and discussing everything. And I think there has been no definitive commitment from China on any of the contentious issues that were there. He may have said that they have no plans of invading Taiwan. On the fentanyl issue, nothing has come up. I think on anything worthwhile, I think China has not given a commitment that they are not going to do that. US has actually requested China to prevent arming of Russia. That I think they have given some sort of an assurance. But to my mind, this meeting is a meeting which we need to take cognizance of. And I think we need to be very, very clear that India has to depend on itself and no one else, as far as its security interests are concerned.
Mr. Kranti, Joe Biden came up with, a laundry list of issues that they have with China. Of course, Taiwan featured there, the South China Sea, Americans who are being held in China illegally. And of course, the one thing that stood out was Joe Biden pulling China up for, non-economic ways or non-market ways to strengthen their economy, which something India can definitely relate to as well.
No, definitely. India has to watch it very carefully. I don't know how much India can gain out of it, because none of the two leaders, whether Joe Biden or Xi Jinping, they had India's interest in their mind. To me, it appears that this meeting was more optics, more of diplomatic optics than real stuff. This meeting reminds me, takes me back to 1970s, when Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger, they went to they visited China, and they had a meeting with Mao. And what was not much advertised, but it's a matter of fact, it's a fact, that both behaved almost like beggars before Mao for seeking his time, and in return, they got spanking from the real whatever dialogue was between Mao and Nixon and Henry Kissinger. It was spanking from Mao and criticism of capitalism and America, etc. But at the same time, making friendly gestures also. And that was the time when America committed one of the worst blunders in history of America and in the history of modern democratic world, that they gave China everything which it did not deserve. They gave respectability to China. They gave recognition to China. Practically, this is what finally ended up, that China replaced Taiwan from United Nations and in reality became the real one China. And then the Americans committed, that was, of course, not only Nixon and Kissinger, the later presidents also, the way they handed over capital to China, the way they gave away their technology, the way they gave away their industry, lock, stock and barrel was taken physically from the Western world to China. And then over and above that, they gave them their market. And the result was China made billions and trillions of dollars, not to become a democratic system, which they were expecting, but become a Frankenstein. And this is what now, it was the meeting between Nixon and Mao. Starting from there, now we are reaching a point where Joe Biden, if you see the statements from Joe Biden, American establishment in recent weeks, it appeared as if they are more keen than Xi Jinping to meet Xi Jinping. And as I said, it's optics. Joe Biden has his own reasons to be seen with Xi Jinping. That is again for the domestic audience. And Xi Jinping himself has those very, very big reasons to mend something, because he is now losing on every ground, except his, the way he is still maintaining his control over the system in China. Otherwise, everything is now going the wrong way, whether it is economics or whether it is his relations with military, his relations within the Communist Party of China, his image within China to the normal, ordinary Chinese. He is on a losing ground. So he also needed some optical kind of limelight. So he was also keen to meet Joe Biden for his own reasons, and Joe Biden has his own reasons. But at the end, I think right now when the whole world is walking into war, from one war to another, maybe if there is some goodwill or good sense on the side of Chinese, this meeting might help, it's a big question mark, might help in letting the war spread, and especially in letting the war spread to Taiwan, which will be a big disaster.
All right. So we've run out of time. Sumit, I saw your hand go up. Quickly, make your point and then we wrap up.
Yeah, just 2 points here. The first point, the modern point is, look at what China's economy and US contribution to their GDP was before Obama and look after Obama. Barack Hussein Obama, pura naam, did what he had to do. He made a Frankenstein monster called China. I don't mince my word. I call him Mia. Hussein Mia did what he had to do. He made China the biggest pain in the wrong side for United States of America. And I hope the Americans can mitigate that risk. I hope that. But today, their advantage is China is very, very weak. This is their time to do what they have to do. And let me tell you, sir, 3 days back, there were 3 Chinese destroyers and a diesel powered sub seen docked in Karachi. They offloaded a lot of cargo in Karachi. They are saying we are doing some kind of a big exercise with Pakistanis who don't have a fisher boat, which is working. Why? Because Eisenhower is 500 kilometers from Iran and Pakistan boundary. So what has United States done when all this optics was happening? They have moved 1 carrier battle group to the Red Sea. They have moved 1 carrier battle group to the Cyprus. So United States is literally encircling the whole of the Middle East and whole of these countries, Lebanon, Beirut, Lebanon and extra who are involved in this war. So you might have optics and semantics with China, but if you look at the military movement in the Middle East and the Red Sea, a lot of things have changed in the last 48 hours, Vineet.
Absolutely.
If China can never, ever be trusted. You are an idiot to trust China. I don't think Americans are so stupid after so many years. Obama Saab did what he had to do, but I hope these people have some sense and learn who is their real enemy. It's not Vladimir Putin, it's Xi Jinping. The sooner they realize it, better for them.
Understood. Thank you everyone for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.